it's Amber from Amber Eats Books, and I'm here today to bring you my weekly reads. This is the video where I wrap up what I read last week, I tell you what I'm currently reading, and what I plan on reading for the coming week. So, I have a bunch of stuff to get through. Let's get started. So the first book that I read last week was Trigger Warning by Neil Gaiman. I tried to get through this. I read about 5 of the stories and they just were not grabbing me. Now, I don't know if this was a combination of I just wasn't in the mood or my brain was just tired from trying to memorize loads and loads of information at my new job. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was a mixture of things. Maybe I just didn't like it. I'm not really sure. I don't want to give up hope on it, so I will probably try to pick this up again in the future to see if maybe I click better with it then. But for right now, this book is just not for me, so I DNF'd it. I'm not going to give it a rating because I did not want to do that on something that I just wasn't sure about. So the first book that I finished since my last weekly reads was A Banquet for Hungry Ghost by Ying Chang Kompenstein. I enjoyed this book thoroughly. I gave it 3 stars. It was creepy, but not over the top gruesome in any way. I did find it a little funny that after each ghost story, because these were short stories, so after each ghost story, there was an historical little excerpt that he would write about the real history behind these ghost stories, which I thought was fantastic. But then there was also a recipe. So something that he mentioned in the story, whether it was one I know was beef stew, but there was other recipes that were, other food related items that were mentioned. He included the recipes for them, which I thought was just funny. So it's like, here's a ghost story. Here's something, that's kind of slightly gruesome and frightening, but here's also a recipe that you can make right afterwards. So I thought that was funny, but I did find some of the recipes to be interesting, so who knows, I might jot them down and give them a try one day. But yeah, I absolutely enjoyed it. I almost thought that it wasn't scary enough sometimes, like I wanted them to take it up a notch, but then I had to remember it was a YA ghost story book, so they were holding back obviously because of their audience. But there were a few times where as an adult I was like, oh, I wish that was just a little scarier because I'm in the mood for something really creepy with Halloween on the horizon, and it just wasn't. But that was really my only negative comment that I could give it. I thought the stories were cute. I thought they were slightly creepy and a little gruesome, but not over the top. So I would definitely highly recommend this if you are a chicken when it comes to horror stories. If you're a chicken when it comes to horror stories, give this one a try because, like I said, this is more like a PG-13 horror movie rather than a rated R. And the first line in this book was, while growing up during China's Cultural Revolution, I constantly hungered for food because it was rationed and books because they were burned. The next book that I read and finished was actually the reason why I didn't get to as many books this week as I wanted to, because this book was so large, and that was The Blinding Knife by Brent Weeks. This is book 2 in the Lightbringer series. I was so in the mood to read this, and I flew through it, but it is 625 pages, so it took me, I think, three and a half days, so time that I could have spent reading, a couple of my shorter books. I just didn't get to all of them, but I was not disappointed because I loved this book. I loved it just as much as the first one, maybe even a little more so, because I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I believe I gave the first one 4 out of 5 stars. This just continued the story of Gavin Guile and the other characters. I don't want to give anything away. I don't want to really tell you anything about what went on in this book because there are a few spoilers if I do. But I really love The Black Prism. I really love The Blinding Knife, and I can't wait to get my hands on the 3rd book. I have already requested it from my library, so hopefully that will come in soon and I will be able to let you guys know what I think of it. The first sentence in this book was, Gavin Guile lay on his back on a narrow skimmer floating in the middle of the sea. The last and final book that I finished this week was Salt to the Sea by Rudis Zapetis. I gave this book 4.5 stars. This book will definitely make the top YA books of the year for my list. I'm not sure yet where it falls on my top books of the year overall, but definitely one of my top YA books. It is a story about 4 characters Most of them are either in their teens or early 20s, and they are kind of converging at the end of World War II. All their stories are starting to merge and come together, and something happens that was a real tragedy in World War II that a lot of people don't talk about. And I just adored this book. First of all, the chapters were extremely short. They were no more than 1 or 2, maybe 3 pages at most. So I could fly through this book. I would have read it in one sitting if I was not so tired last night and just fell asleep while reading it. Otherwise, I would have been able to read it in one sitting. It was that quick and that good of a read. You get all 4 characters' points of view. They rotate through all 4 characters. It's very quick, so you are not stuck with one character for a large amount of time. You don't get sick of them. You're constantly going back and forth and seeing things from the other character's point of view that happened, and it was just entrancing. I really enjoyed it. I got a little emotional towards the end, and I just can't recommend it enough. I actually told my teenage daughter, Kaylee, I told her to hurry up and read this because we have to get it back to the library by Tuesday. And I really think that this should be a book that she reads because it really touched me. And some of you may not know, but I read a lot of World War II books. So for something to affect me now reading World War II, it's a little difficult because once you read so many books on the same subject, you start to get a little jaded. You kind of know what's going to happen. You kind of know what to expect. The events of the war do not change. I mean, it is historical fiction, but mostly the events are based on history, so that you know what's going to happen. But this book just gave a really unique take that I had never read about before, so it caught me a little off guard, and I did get a little emotional, which doesn't happen so often anymore. I think the only other World War II book this year that I read that I got emotional with was The Nightingale. I know I read All the Light We Cannot See, which I did not get emotional for that one. I don't think I even rated it that highly. I might have rated it 3 out of 5 stars. But yeah, this one definitely one that I would recommend to anyone who really enjoys reading about World War II or just wants to see a different perspective about that time in our history. The first line in this book was, "Guilt is a hunter." Now for the book that I'm currently reading, and that is The Vegetarian by Han Kang. This is a book about a woman who decides to become a vegetarian, and some people, I think it's her husband and her sister, are kind of revolting against it and trying to reassert their power, over her, and she's sticking to her guns to become the vegetarian. I also know, I'm only a couple pages into it, so that was just kind of what I got off of the synopsis, but I have heard from other people it's so much more than a book about becoming vegetarian. It just is really amazing and takes you to places you didn't think you were going to go. So I'm very excited to finally be reading this, and I will let you guys know what I think during my next weekly reads. And 2 books from my last weekly reads that I would really still like to try and get to this week, we'll see how it goes, is A Certain Slant of Light by Laura Whitcomb and All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy. These are short. I picked a lot of shorter books this week, so hopefully I'll be able to get through them all. Now, September is coming to a close, and as I reflect on what I read this month, I realized I did not read my children's classic for the month. So I'm going to try to fit in this week Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. Since it's all in one book, I will just read both. I am excited to get to this. I love this version of the book. It's printed by Word Cloud Classics, they're called. I absolutely love this version, so I've been dying to get to it and dying to get to the story. So I will definitely read this, at least try to, and tell you how much I did or did not enjoy it. And the last book this week that I hope to get to is another one that I've been dying to get my hands on, and it finally came in from the library, and that is Alumini by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I've heard fantastic things about this book. I know that it is a story written in case files, which I find really unique, and I'm hoping that the format will allow me to read it quickly, even though it is such a large book. So hopefully I will enjoy this, and I will be able to gush about it in my next weekly reads. So those are all the books that I read and that I plan on reading during the coming week. If you guys have read any of these, please let me know what you thought. I would love to hear your opinions. And as always, have a great week and happy reading.